Captain Trell stood on the bridge of the Starship constellation for what he thought would be the last time. His gray skin looked even more dull under the dying lights of the old ship. After 120 years of loyal service to the Galactic Alliance, the proud vessel was being put down like an old animal. "Captain, shutdown sequence is at 60%, said First Officer Mick from his station. Like all Raxians, Mick followed every rule perfectly. His uniform had no wrinkles, and his voice had no emotion. Trell nodded. "Continue the process." He walked slowly around the bridge, touching the control panels one last time. The constellation had once been the pride of the Alliance fleet. It had fought in the Nebula Wars, saved thousands during the Great Evacuation, and mapped more unknown regions than any other ship of its class. Now its hull was weak, its engines were failing, and the Alliance had decided that fixing it would cost too much. More economic to scrap it, they had said in the official message. Through the main window, Trill could see the outpost station Delta where they would leave the ship. It was an ugly thing, all sharp angles and blinking lights, sitting at the edge of Alliance space. A perfect place to forget about old ships. "Captain, incoming transmission," called out Mick. "It's from Alliance Command." Trell sighed. "Put it through." The screen lit up showing Admiral Zax, his face as serious as always. "Captain Trell, there has been a change of plans." Trell's antenna twitched with surprise. In the Alliance, plans rarely changed. "What kind of change, Admiral?" "The humans have made an offer to purchase the constellation outright." Trell nearly lost his perfect Raxian composure. "The humans, but they've only been in the Alliance for 5 years. What would they want with our outdated technology?" Admiral Zax's face showed the same confusion. "Unknown, Captain. But they've offered a substantial amount of credits, and the Council has accepted. Rather than scrapping the ship, we will transfer ownership." Trell couldn't believe what he was hearing. Humans were the newest and strangest members of the Alliance. They did things differently, didn't respect traditions, and somehow survived anyway. The idea of them owning an Alliance vessel, even an old one, made his stomach turn. "Sir, the constellation contains classified systems. Surely we can't just hand it over to." "The decision has been made, Captain." The Admiral cut him off. "You and a skeleton crew will remain on board to oversee the transfer when the humans arrive in 3 months. That is all." The screen went dark. Officer Mick looked up from his station. "Shall I halt the shutdown sequence, Captain?" Trell stared out at the stars. "Yes. It seems the constellation has been given a small reprieve." Over the next few days, most of the crew left. Only Trell and 5 others remained, keeping basic systems running while they waited. The empty corridors echoed with their footsteps. The ship felt like a ghost. In his quarters, Trell read everything he could find about humans. They were unpredictable, emotional, and took risks no Raxian would consider reasonable. How could such a young species be trusted with a starship, even an old one? One night, as he sat alone in the mess hall, he heard a strange sound, a low groan from deep within the ship. "The structural supports are starting to fail," he said to no one. He placed his hand on the wall. After a lifetime in space, Trell knew ships had no feelings. They were just metal and circuits. But still, it felt wrong to see the constellation die slowly like this. "What could they possibly want with you?" he asked the empty room. Only the hum of failing systems answered him. 3 months passed slowly on the dying ship. Captain Trell spent his days writing reports and checking systems that grew weaker by the day. The constellation was barely holding together when the human ship finally arrived. Trell watched from the docking bay as their shuttle connected to the constellation. He stood straight, his uniform perfect as any Raxian's should be. Beside him, Officer Mick held a data pad with the transfer documents. The airlock hissed open, and noise poured in. Loud talking, laughter, and something Trell recognized as music. The humans didn't walk in. They burst in. "Captain Trell, great to meet you." A tall human with bright eyes and a wide smile stepped forward, hand extended. "I'm Captain Jack. This is quite a ship you've got here." Trell looked at the hand, but didn't take it. "The Constellation is no longer my ship, Captain. It is now Alliance property being transferred to Earth." Jack's smile didn't fade. "Well, technically it's ours already. We signed the papers last week. These are just the handover formalities." More humans entered the bay, carrying tools, boxes, and what looked like food containers. They moved with energy that made the Raxian crew seem like statues. A woman with curly hair walked up. She wore a stained work suit with HFY Engineer printed on it. "I'm Ellie," she said, already looking around at the ship's systems. "Mind if I take a peek at the engine core? Been dying to see what we're working with." "The engine core is barely functional," Trell said stiffly. "It requires complete replacement according to Section 47 of the Alliance Technical Manual." Ellie laughed. "Manuals are just starting points, Captain. Let's see what she's really saying." Before Trell could object, Ellie was already heading toward the engine room, following signs in Raxian that she shouldn't have been able to read. "Your engineer should review the technical documents first," Trell said to Jack. "The Constellation's systems are complex and—" "Oh, Ellie read all that stuff months ago," Jack said, waving his hand. "Memorized most of it too. But she likes to feel a ship before fixing it. Says machines talk to her." Trell's antenna twitched with disbelief. "Machines do not talk." "Maybe not to Raxians," Jack winked. Over the next few days, Trell watched in horror as the humans violated nearly every protocol in the Alliance handbook. They played loud music while they worked. They ate food in restricted areas. Worst of all, they took apart systems without proper documentation. One morning, Trell found 3 humans removing a wall panel in the main corridor. "This bulkhead is structural," he protested. "You cannot remove it without proper approval." One of the humans, Tom, looked up from his work. "Actually, it's not load-bearing. The real support is 5 meters back. This was added later, probably during repairs after the Nebula Wars. It's just blocking airflow." Trell was stunned. How did they know about modifications made 80 years ago? Later, he found Ellie in the engine room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with parts spread around her. She wasn't using any diagnostic tools, just her hands and ears. "What are you doing?" Trell asked. Ellie placed her hand on the engine casing. "Listening," she said. "This old girl isn't dead. She's just tired and needs someone who cares." "The Alliance cared for this vessel for 120 years, Trell said, offended. "Taking care of something isn't the same as caring about it," Ellie replied with a soft smile. "You maintained her. We're going to love her back to life." That night, Trell lay awake in his quarters. The humans made no sense. They broke rules, ignored procedures, and yet somehow made progress. The lights in his room, dim for months, now shone a bit brighter. The air felt cleaner too. Coincidence, he told himself. But part of him wondered what else the humans might change with their strange ways. 2 weeks after the humans arrived, the Constellation looked like a battlefield. Tools and parts covered the floors. Panels hung open. Wires dangled from ceilings. To Trell, it was pure chaos. To the humans, it was progress. Captain Trell stood in the ship's main engineering room, watching as Ellie and her team installed what looked like a completely new type of power core. "This is not an approved Alliance technology," Trell said, pointing at the glowing blue cylinder. "It violates at least 15 safety regulations." Ellie wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of grease. "It's Earth's newest fusion design. Puts out 3 times the power of your old core, but uses half the fuel. It has not been tested for compatibility with Raxian systems," Trell insisted. "That's what we're doing right now," said Tom with a grin. "Testing it." Trell's antenna stood straight up in alarm. You cannot simply connect untested technology to a starship's main systems. There are procedures, safety checks. Captain Trell, Jack interrupted, entering the room. Your alliance has been building ships the same way for 500 years. That's why they break down after only a century. We build ours differently. Your approach is reckless, Trell said. You risk destabilizing the entire ship. Sometimes you have to break something to make it better, Jack replied. Their argument was interrupted by a loud crash from the next room. They rushed in to find two humans standing by an open panel, looking guilty. On the floor lay a damaged piece of equipment Trell recognized immediately. That is part of the ship's ag core, he shouted. It is strictly forbidden to modify central intelligence systems without proper authorization. One of the humans, Lisa, shrugged. The guidance system was too slow. We're upgrading it. You're not upgrading it. You're destroying it. Trell was losing his famous Raxian calm. This is the brain of the vessel. It contains 120 years of operational data and learning. And we're backing all that up, Lisa assured him. But the processing architecture is ancient. We're just giving it a modern brain to work with. Trell had reached his limit. This has gone too far. I am contacting Alliance Command. He stormed off to his quarters, his steps heavy with anger. The humans were not improving the Asterisk constellation Asterisk. They were dismantling a piece of Alliance history. He activated his communication console. This is Captain Trell requesting emergency contact with Alliance Command, he said when the connection opened. Admiral Zax appeared on the screen, looking annoyed at being disturbed. What is it, Captain? Sir, I must request immediate termination of the Human Restoration Project. They are making unauthorized modifications to critical systems, installing untested technology, and dismantling historical components. The Admiral's expression didn't change. Are they damaging the ship, Captain? Trell hesitated. Not exactly damaging, but changing it beyond recognition. The ship is their property now, the Admiral reminded him. Unless they're creating a safety hazard, we have no grounds to intervene. But, sir, however, the Admiral continued, your concerns are noted. I will send an inspection team to evaluate the situation. They will arrive in 5 days. Until then, document all violations of standard procedure. When the call ended, Trell sat in silence. 5 days. The humans could do untold damage in 5 days. Later, as he walked through the ship, he noticed something strange. The lights were brighter. The air smelled fresher. Even the floor felt more solid under his feet. Near the mess hall, he passed Jack and Ellie deep in conversation. We need to push harder, Jack was saying. The power conversion isn't happening fast enough. If we push any harder, we might fry the whole system, Ellie warned. Take the risk, Jack insisted. I know what this ship can do. Trell walked away, troubled by their words but even more troubled by the fact that, despite all his concerns, the dying ship somehow felt more alive than it had in years. The day before the Alliance inspectors were due to arrive, the humans decided to test their new propulsion system. Trell and Officer Mike stood in the back of the bridge, watching nervously as the human crew prepared. All systems ready for power-up sequence, called Lisa from her station. Captain Jack nodded. Begin test at 25% power. Ellie's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. Starting up now. Keep an eye on the coolant levels. Trell leaned toward Mick. The coolant system is not designed to handle the output from their new core. This is dangerous. As if the ship heard him, a warning alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Power surge in the main grid, shouted Tom. It's jumping between systems. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered on and off. The gravity shifted, making everyone grab onto something solid. The surge is moving toward the life support systems, Lisa reported, her fingers flying over her control panel. Trell stepped forward. You must shut down all systems immediately. This is the emergency protocol. "No," said Jack firmly. "If we shut down now, we'll lose control of the surge. Ellie, can you contain it?" "I need more power, not less," Ellie's voice answered. "Give me full access to all systems." "That goes against every safety regulation," Trell protested. Jack ignored him. "Do it, Ellie." Full access granted. The ship's shaking grew worse. A panel near Trell exploded in a shower of sparks. Officer Mick pulled out his emergency beacon. "Captain Trell, we should evacuate. Protocol states." "Wait," Trell said, watching the humans work. Instead of running to the escape pods as Raxians would, every human was at their station, working together in a way Trell had never seen before. They called out to each other, moved quickly, and somehow seemed to know what each person needed without asking. In the engine room, Ellie was taking the biggest risk of all. Through the camera feed, Trell could see her redirecting the power surge, not away from critical systems, but through them in a controlled loop. "What is she doing?" Mick asked in horror. "Something impossible," Trell answered quietly. The ship gave one final violent shake, then suddenly everything stabilized. The alarms stopped. The lights returned to normal. "Surge contained," Ellie announced, her voice tired but triumphant. The feedback loop worked. "We burned it out." The bridge crew cheered. Jack turned to Trell with a smile. "See, sometimes you have to go through the fire to come out stronger." Later, Trell found Ellie in the mess hall. She was covered in coolant fluid and had a burn on her arm, but she was smiling as she ate. "You could have been killed," Trell said, sitting across from her. "Why didn't you follow safety protocols and shut everything down?" Ellie looked up at him. "Because the ship needed us to be brave. Shutting down is what the Alliance always does when there's trouble, but sometimes you need to push through the trouble to find the solution." "That makes no logical sense," Trell insisted. "Not everything that works makes logical sense, Captain." She gestured around them. "Listen to the ship now." Trell paused. The constant rattling that had plagued the Asterisk constellation Asterisk for years was gone. The hum of the engines sounded smoother, stronger. "You fixed it," he said, surprised. "No," Ellie corrected him. "We didn't fix it. We helped it heal itself. The Asterisk constellation Asterisk just needed to be pushed past what everyone thought were its limits." For the first time, Trell wondered if the problem had never been with the ship, but with how the Alliance had treated it. Always following the safe path. Never taking risks. He thought about the inspectors arriving tomorrow. They would see only broken rules and violated protocols. Would they also see what he was beginning to see? That sometimes the book needed to be thrown away. The Alliance inspection team arrived early the next morning. Their shuttle docked with perfect precision, exactly on schedule. Captain Trell waited at the airlock, his uniform spotless once again. Behind him stood Captain Jack, looking unusually tidy, though he still wore his Earth-style jacket instead of a proper Alliance uniform. When the airlock opened, 5 Raxians walked in. At their head was Administrator Vox, known throughout the Alliance as the strictest enforcer of regulations. His face showed no emotion as he looked around the docking bay. "Captain Trell," he said with a small nod, "I understand there have been irregularities." "Administrator Vox," Trell replied formally. "This is Captain Jack of Earth, the new owner of the Asterisk constellation Asterisk." Jack stepped forward with his hand extended. "Great to meet you. We're excited to show you what we've done with the old girl." Vox ignored Jack's hand. "I am not here to be excited, Captain. I am here to ensure Alliance regulations are being followed, even on a vessel under Earth ownership." As they walked through the ship, Vox's team documented every modification, every changed system, and every broken rule. Their data pads filled quickly. Vox's face grew darker with each discovery. "This is worse than reported," he said when they reached the engine room. "You've replaced the core power system with untested technology. You've modified the AI interface. You've even removed structural supports. Non-essential supports," corrected Ellie, who was monitoring the engines. And the new core has already been tested, yesterday. Vox looked at her sharply. Tested. Without approval. Jack stepped in smoothly. Administrator, I understand your concerns, but I'd like to propose something. Judge us by results, not by process. Let us take you on a short demonstration flight. Absolutely not, Vox replied. This vessel is clearly unsafe and in violation of at least 73 Alliance regulations. The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk is safer now than it's been in 50 years, Jack argued. Let us prove it to you. Vox turned to Trell. Captain, as the Alliance representative, what is your assessment? Trell felt all eyes on him. A week ago, he would have agreed with Vox without hesitation. Now, he wasn't so sure. He remembered how the ship had responded during the crisis, how it seemed stronger afterward. I believe, Trell said slowly, that a short demonstration might provide valuable data for your report. Vox's antenna twitched in surprise. You support this violation of protocol. I support seeing the full picture before making a judgment, Trell replied carefully. After a long moment, Vox nodded stiffly. Very well. A short flight to the nearby star and back. Nothing more. As the inspection team left to prepare, Jack turned to Trell with raised eyebrows. Didn't expect you to back us up there. I didn't back you up, Trell said. I simply suggested a more complete evaluation. Jack smiled. That's a start. 2 hours later, they gathered on the bridge for the test flight. The inspection team sat rigidly in their seats, data pads ready. The human crew moved with their usual energy, checking systems and talking to each other in their casual way. Who will pilot the vessel? Vox asked. I will, said Jack. And I request to be co-pilot, Trell added, surprising everyone, including himself. Jack looked at him with new respect. Granted, Captain Trell. As they took their seats at the front of the bridge, Trell felt strangely calm. Part of him knew this was a bad idea. The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk had been modified beyond recognition. It violated everything he believed about proper procedure and protocol. Yet as he placed his hands on the controls, the ship seemed to respond to his touch in a way it never had before. It felt alive, eager to move. Ready for launch, Captain Trell? Jack asked with a grin. Trell nodded. Ready, Captain Jack. Behind them, Vox made a disapproving noise. But Trell wasn't listening anymore. For the first time in his long career, he was curious to see what would happen when rules were broken. All systems ready for launch, called Lisa from her station. Trell's hands moved over the familiar controls, but nothing felt familiar anymore. The panel responded faster. The displays were brighter. Even the ship's hum had changed to a deeper, stronger sound. Preparing for engine start, Jack announced. Ellie, how are we looking down there? All green. Ellie's voice came through clearly. The old girl is ready to dance. Administrator Vox frowned at this unprofessional language, but said nothing. Trell and Jack worked the controls together. The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk moved away from the station with a smoothness that surprised everyone. There was none of the shaking or rattling that had plagued the old ship for decades. Setting course for the Luma star, Trell said. Standard approach. Jack grinned. Let's not be too standard, shall we? He pushed the throttle forward harder than protocol allowed. The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk jumped forward, and Trell felt the push against his seat. The ship was moving much faster than its specifications should allow. This velocity exceeds safety parameters, objected Vox from behind them. Old parameters, corrected Jack. Watch the structural integrity readings. The displays showed all systems functioning perfectly despite the speed. The star grew larger on the main viewer as they approached in record time. Beginning orbital insertion, Trell announced. He guided the ship into a perfect curve around the star. The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk responded to his touch like never before. It wasn't fighting against him as it had for years. It was working with him. Amazing. Trell whispered so only Jack could hear. Jack nodded. This is what happens when you stop treating a ship like a machine and start treating it like a partner. As they completed their orbit and prepared to return to the station, an urgent message came through. Emergency distress signal, Tom reported. A transport vessel is under attack by raiders. They're only 2 minutes from our position. Vox stood up immediately. We are not authorized for rescue operations. This is an inspection flight only. Protocol requires that we alert Alliance security forces and maintain our course. Jack looked at the data. Alliance security would take 20 minutes to reach them. That transport will be destroyed in 5. That is unfortunate, but not our concern, said Vox. This vessel is not battle-ready and not cleared for engagement. Jack turned to Trell. What do you think, Captain? All eyes turned to Trell. He knew the regulations perfectly. The Constellation was not officially in service. They had no authority to intervene. The proper protocol was clear. But in his mind, he could see people on that transport, people who would die waiting for the proper help to arrive. Change course, Trell ordered firmly. Intercept the raiders. Vox's antenna stood straight up in shock. Captain Trell, you are violating direct protocol. I am making the command decision to save lives, Trell replied without looking back. Jack quickly adjusted their course. The Constellation responded instantly, rushing toward the coordinates of the attack. When they arrived, they saw 3 small raider ships firing on a civilian transport. Without Alliance markings, the raiders didn't immediately recognize the Constellation as a threat. Weapons systems online, reported Tom, though they haven't been fully tested. Target their engines only, Trell commanded. The Constellation's weapons fired with surprising precision. 2 raider ships lost engine power immediately. The third turned to face them, then quickly fled when it recognized what it was facing. As they escorted the damaged transport back toward Alliance space, Vox approached Trell on the bridge. You deliberately disobeyed protocol, Vox said coldly, and engaged in combat with an uninspected vessel. Yes, Trell admitted, and saved 26 lives as a result. The protocols exist for a reason, Captain. They exist to guide us, Trell responded, not to replace our judgment. Vox looked genuinely confused. This is not the Raxian way of thinking. Perhaps, said Trell, glancing at Jack, who was pretending not to listen. It is time for our way of thinking to evolve. The return to Outpost Station Delta was quiet. The inspection team sat together, talking in low voices and making notes. The human crew worked their stations with the same energy as always, but they kept glancing at Administrator Vox, wondering what his final decision would be. Captain Trell stood near the viewport, watching the stars. He felt strangely calm despite knowing he had broken the most important rule of Raxian life: always follow protocol. Jack joined him at the window. Whatever happens, he said quietly, you did the right thing back there. Perhaps, Trell replied, but the right thing is not always the approved thing. After they docked, everyone gathered in the main conference room. The rescued transport had already continued on its way, its captain sending repeated thanks for their help. Administrator Vox stood at the head of the table, his face as expressionless as ever. The inspection team lined up behind him, data pads ready. I have completed my evaluation of the Constellation Vox announced formally. The modifications made by the Earth team violate 78 Alliance regulations. The structural changes are unapproved, the engine modifications are untested by proper facilities, and the combat engagement was unauthorized. The human crew looked disappointed but not surprised. Even Jack's usual smile had faded. However, Vox continued, and his antenna twitched slightly. The results cannot be ignored. The ship's performance exceeds all previous metrics. The power efficiency has improved by 217%. And he paused, 26 lives were saved that would have been lost if we had followed standard protocol. Trell's antenna rose in surprise. He had never heard Vox admit that protocol could be wrong. "My recommendation to Alliance Command is as follows," Vox said. "The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk will be recommissioned as an experimental vessel. It will serve as a test platform for new technologies and approaches." And he looked directly at Trell. "It will require a command team that understands both Alliance standards and innovative thinking." Jack stepped forward. "What exactly are you suggesting, Administrator?" "A joint command," Vox replied. "Captain Trell to represent Alliance interests, and you, Captain Jack, to continue your Earth methods. Together, perhaps you will find a middle path that takes the best from both approaches." Trell looked at Jack, who seemed as surprised as he was. "And you would approve such an arrangement?" Trell asked Vox. "I would not have suggested it 1 day ago," Vox admitted. "But after witnessing today's events, I must consider that our way is not the only way. Perhaps it is not even the best way in all situations." Coming from a Raxian administrator, this was revolutionary thinking. 2 weeks later, the newly commissioned Asterisk Constellation Asterisk prepared for its first official mission. The crew was a mix now. Half Raxian, half human. They still argued about protocols and procedures, but they listened to each other too. On the bridge, Trell sat in the captain's chair. Jack stood beside him as first officer. Ellie's voice came through from engineering, reporting that all systems were ready. "You know," Jack said quietly, "a year ago this ship was heading for the scrapyard." Trell nodded. "The Alliance thought it was finished, used up." "They were wrong," Jack smiled. "Yes," agreed Trell. "They were wrong about many things." As the Asterisk Constellation Asterisk moved away from the station, its engines glowed with a new color, neither the standard Alliance blue nor the Earth ship's red, but a purple that came from the two technologies working together. "Course laid in, Captain," called out Lisa from her station. "Proceed," ordered Trell. Then he added something no Raxian captain had ever said before. "Let's see what she can really do." The Asterisk Constellation Asterisk jumped to speed, leaving behind a trail of light that shimmered with colors the Alliance had never seen before. Just like the humans who had saved it, the old ship had found a new way to shine.